All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Now, they just got a huge bounce-back victory this past weekend at home against the Washington Commanders, a late-game thriller. This Seahawks team loves making it way more stressful than it needs to be, but nonetheless, this was just a huge bounce-back victory after the prior last game against the Baltimore Ravens. Here's the thing, man. This season currently kind of reminds me a little bit of Seattle of last year. You do have a very difficult remaining schedule. However, this team is still 6-3. And Geno Smith still stepped up when he needed to. Geno Smith has still all season been stepping up when he needed to. Now, me personally, I'm not much of a stat guy. I do love statistics, but I'm not going to put too much into it. For me, it's more of a, did you win? Did you win? A lot of people like to nitpick teams that don't have franchise quarterbacks that are named guys like Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud. Now, a lot of people like to just kind of discredit teams and write them off simply because their starting quarterback is not an absolute superstar or top 5 player in the National Football League. When I look at this Seattle Seahawks team, first off, a win is a win. They're 6-3. And I think they're very complimentary. And I know we've talked about that a lot on this channel before the season started, through 9 games of the regular season. But I think they're very complimentary, especially on the defensive side. And I view them as very versatile. They have a lot of different players who can do a lot of different things, and I love having options. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Seattle Seahawks in today's video. But guys, before we do, if you enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content, along with at least one Seahawks video every single week. Seahawks fans, if we try and get this video to 250 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So here's the thing. That last weekend game was, it was kind of like a little bit of a, anxiety attack there. But at the end of the day, Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks still got the job done. And for the duration of the season, you do have some difficult games. You've got 2 games against the San Francisco 49ers. You've got a road game against the Rams this Sunday. You've got the Cowgirls. You've got the Eagles. But then there are some winnable games. Tennessee, Arizona, Pittsburgh circled as a, maybe. This team, if they win 9 games, they're going to be in the playoffs. Now, with Seattle, especially acquiring Chase Young, I don't necessarily think they're going to make the NFC West champions just because, San Francisco's got so much talent. If you guys remember, I will hold myself accountable to this. I predicted like 12 or 13 wins for the Seahawks this season, along with an NFC West champion title. But here's the thing. I still just want people to remind themselves, and Seahawks fans are obviously aware of this. Last year, the Seattle Seahawks were projected 4 or 5 wins. Vegas and pretty much every NFL analyst predicted and projected the Seahawks to win 4 or 5 football games. So the fact that they went 9-8, the fact that they held their own against San Francisco in the first half in the playoffs, and the fact that they're 6-3 right now, when we zoom out, they're still ahead of schedule. They're still doing things that they necessarily weren't supposed to do. Now, here's the thing. Geno Smith, I get it. He makes turnovers. He makes mistakes. He'll fumble the football. He'll throw, iffy balls that get intercepted, whatever. But he still steps up when he needs to. And for me, especially as this season is progressing, as I've had more time covering the NFL for over a year now, it's just situational teams get me going. It just gets me going. Like, if you can win when it matters most, what do good teams do? Or more importantly, what do great teams do? They win ugly. And Seattle's done a very good job of winning good games, blowout games, games they weren't supposed to win. They've won ugly like this past Sunday. But Geno Smith especially still makes plays when he needs to. This past Sunday against the Washington Commanders, 31-47, 369 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, including that game-winning drive, setting it up for the game-winning field goal from Myers. There's a lot to like about this team at the present and in the future. Some things I would like to see a little bit differently are pretty much the run game. The Seattle Seahawks have Kenneth Walker III, and they have Zach Charbonnet. And by the way, Zach Charbonnet and JSN, just like we predicted, have had, first off, very good rookie seasons, but they've only gotten better from a week-to-week basis. For example, Zach Charbonnet this past weekend, 6 rushes for 44 yards, averaging 7.3 yards per carry. JSN, 4 catches for 53 yards. When I pair JSN up with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who both had over 90 receiving yards last Sunday against Washington, It's just the perfect complementary high upside rookie to have on my football team. But when I do look at some negatives for Seattle, rush game, they're averaging just under 100 rushing yards per game, which sounds not too bad. That's 24th in the league. Now, here's why I'm not worried about rushing statistics is first off, I use my eyes and I look at Kenneth Walker III and I think, he's played in the NFL for a year and a half and he's a stud. Zach Charbonnet is a stud and he's played in the league for 9 NFL games. So for me, especially a team like Seattle that may be, roster-wise on paper overmatched against a team like San Francisco, it really comes down to health. And we know that the Seattle Seahawks offensive line especially dealt with just numerous injuries for pretty much the first half of the regular season. So when I think of guys like Kenneth Walker, and this is something I really preached all offseason, and it's why I was so glad that they picked up Zach Charbonnet, I just want these guys healthy. I just want Kenneth Walker III healthy heading into games like this. Heading into divisional matchups against San Francisco, this upcoming Sunday against the Rams. Because we could look at stats here and be like, all right, Kenneth Walker rush game against Washington, 19 carries, 63 yards. He averaged only 3.3 yards per carry. But then you see like the 64-yard wide or running back screen that he took to the house. These are still playmakers. And by the way, people have bad weeks. Some weeks you just don't have it. And that's why wins are so important. And it reminds me of last year because Seattle started a lot better than people had anticipated. And they kind of just held on for the duration of the season, ended up making the playoffs, and like we said, kept it close against San Francisco. So some weeks you just don't have it. Some weeks Kenneth Walker is going to average 3.3 yards per carry. Other weeks he's going to average 5.3 yards per carry. But at the end of the day, I'm more worried about, or not worried, I'm more focused on the end of the season. I'm more focused on ending the season on a high note and keeping that momentum going into the playoffs. So, no, I'm not completely enamored by the Seattle Seahawks at this current point, but the fact that they're 6-3, nobody really talks about this team as a legitimate threat. I think they're ready, and as we've seen, they're ready to just shock some people here. They're not going to make it easy. They're going to make it difficult on you. Guys like Devin Witherspoon, just the hard-hitting, forced fumbles, interceptions, what have you. Leonard Williams with the sack this past weekend. It's a process, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And while Seattle's season, they're averaged 22 points per game. That's 14th in the NFL. They're giving up 22 points per game. That's 20th in the NFL. I genuinely think they're in a really good spot. And I don't think too many people are going to argue with that. Now, here's the thing. I need one against San Francisco. I need one versus Dallas or Philadelphia. Who knows, though? Who knows what's about to happen? Injuries happen. Momentum shifts. I'm still very bullish on the Seattle Seahawks, and a win is a win. And even though it was ugly, it was a huge bounce-back victory after losing 37-3 against Baltimore the week prior. So that's it for today. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. But more importantly, Seahawks fans, over halfway through the regular season, how are you guys feeling about this team? Let me know down below. Peace.